oftentimes we're being guided to how we think and not how we feel. And I believe that it's the balance between the two, between the heart and the mind, is where, really important work can be made and shared.
Welcome to Unapologetically Creative, a podcast from the Vermont College of Fine Arts, where we celebrate bold artistry, transformative creativity, and the audacious voices shaping the future of the arts. I'm your host, Andrew Ramsamy, and in this series, we dive into honest, inspiring conversations with artists who are pushing boundaries and redefining what it means to create work that resonates and endures. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with a multisensory storyteller whose practice weaves together video, collage, and public presence to explore intimacy, absence, and the contours of collective memory. Suné Woods is a Los Angeles-based artist working in multi-channel video installations, photography, and collage. Their critically acclaimed work, Falling to Get Here, uses the metaphor of a word I can't even pronounce. What is that word? What is that word, Suné?
Is this the word? We were revisiting this word.
Yes, we're revisiting this word.
2017. Asymptote.
Asymptote. You'll have to say it for me.
So Falling to Get Here was a project that I worked on with Fred Moten, the incredible writer, critical theorist. And asymptote, it's a mathematical term, but it also is what is used for when the Falling to Get Here is a project that is thinking about intimacy. And so the asymptote is like something that comes very, very close together in its trajectory, but then never actually meets. I guess like these two lines that come together that never actually meet, if I'm remembering correctly. But it was, meant to talk about intimacy, and the circumstances, the conditions in which we are trying to find intimacy under state violence and, like under really horrific, conditions.
So when you take something like that, when you take something that is trying to symbolize proximity without that convergence, what is it that then allows you, what does that allow you then to do?
Well, in the work, or I guess we're speaking about Falling to Get Here,
Sure.
And, it's thinking about intimacy. So it's utilizing and trying to find it in how people relate to each other, so, for example, that particular work came about with conversations between me and Fred, and, he in his own work was thinking about intimacy, and I was in my work. So it was kind of this convergence of our practices coming together. But during that time, it was like this circulation of, images of Black folks being killed, circulating in the media, on social media, and just being bombarded with like felt like overwhelming, conditions in which we live in the United States.
In this kind of present moment that we're living in right now, we're being bombarded with more images, especially what just recently happened here in Los Angeles with the ICE raids and then the protests that were happening downtown in Los Angeles. What is the role of an artist to ensure that that doesn't become a singular narrative?
I feel that every artist has to use their voice, and every artist has a different voice. Me personally, I feel that I want to create space for people to be able to have respite, to be able to have sanctuary, to be able to, if you're out there on the streets, you're a warrior, and then you will have strategies to rest your mind, your body, your soul. I'm interested in, modalities of healing that aren't, Western, and that are, connected to the earth, connected to the water. And so, in my work, in my life work, in my practice, in my art practice, I'm articulating ways in which you can find healing, from these conditions.
So you talked about your connection between water as both like a material and a metaphor, and this kind of concept of navigating interspecies relationships to surface the kind of vulnerabilities of our social and cultural histories. What is that?
It's a prophecy.
Oh, we're going to get deep now. Prophecy. What do you mean by that?
No, water is, in many traditions, it's the realm, the spirit realm. It's where the realm of the ancestors, and it's also, a place like I think multidimensionally through my work.
Mhm.
So, there's a place where the ancestors reside, which is, the spirit realm, but it's also a place where we occupy, in global industry, and that we're polluting the waters. But it's also a place where one can connect to the water spirits that are there to find a reconnection with, because we are mostly water. And you are able to connect to the ocean, to the rivers, to the hot springs, to reconnect to and align and find balance. But the interspecies connections, which I've been navigating, throughout my entire life work and practice, is I feel that, understanding our relationship to other species or understanding relationship to other animals is where we find our own healing, because we're all interconnected.
Hmm.
And to not see ourselves as, these dominant creatures, or that we are, to not see ourselves as superior.
Do you get as literal as thinking about water as being something that all truly connects us? And especially in the fact that water is not a renewable source. It is the only source that we will ever have. It's finite. So we share it all. We drink it all. We process it all. It goes through us. It exits out of us. And then at some point it goes back in again. Do you get that kind of literal with thinking about water in that way?
I mean, certainly it's something that I think about. And I think I read once that the water on the planet it's always been the same amount of water.
Yes, it's finite. Right.
Which is
Crazy, right?
It's fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
You'd be drinking the water that George Washington drank.
Right.
Yes,
That
right.
Harriet Tubman drank,
Right, right.
Yeah.
Where does that take you as an artist? Wait, when you think about that, and it's not just conceptual, it's actually factual.
It's ancestral.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like what lives in our cells, in our DNA, what we carry. Like it's, yeah. I mean, if you think of it like that,
Yeah.
it's just like we are. Yeah, it's pretty fucking deep. It's yeah, that we're a part of the water that has ever been. We are that water.
When you take concepts of thinking around intimacy, representation, political power, especially in light of what's happened to Black communities, not just recently, but also historically, what is it that you're trying to achieve through your work? What are you trying to draw us near to?
Yeah, my focus and, I guess like the manifesto or the mission or the vision, dream that is in my work is sharing strategies of healing. I'm interested in acupuncture and Ayurveda and, earth-based practices where you're on the land, that you're connecting with the plants, that you're speaking to the mugwort, that you're connecting on a cellular level. And so I work with the traditional healers. I am on a path of that myself. And so it is, it's expressed through the work of this is one way. There are many ways. This is one way that you can find some balance in your energy body, in your spiritual body.
How does rhythm, voice, and collaboration influence your creative process?
Collaboration is essential to how I work. I mean, I really find working with people that I respect, with my community, um, it's kind of like collage when you put two disparate things together. Some really radical, beautiful thing is birthed, and I see that in collaboration. And so many unexpected surprises. So I feel like it's the way that I would love to work. Like, I don't love this individuation or individual practices, or even like the attention of like a solo artist.
Is there such a thing as, because I came from the world of filmmaking, right? That was the auteur.
Right.
And I always thought that was bullshit. There is no such thing as the auteur. Or when someone says, I can make a pencil. No, you can't.
I mean, it's very Western, right?
Very Western.
It's very Western. So I think that working in a collective or a collaboration for me is the most exciting way of working, because you're able to, I mean, it is like a band. It is, I mean, it is like having access to the most beautiful parts of someone's imagination, and that all gets, created together.
When you look at your work between collage, archival image, video, and perhaps other platforms and other ways in which you communicate narrative, how does that buck up against what has been traditional in the sense of how things are supposed to be told?
Well, I would say it's nonlinear narrative, or nonlinear ways of communicating. Primarily these days I've been working in video or video installation. And so I'm interested in communicating in an environment to give people like a lived experience, to come in, have like you said in the beginning, a multisensory experience. And so it's, I'm not sure if I'm even answering the question.
No, you are. You are. Keep going.
But it's important for me to just have people feel, like I think that, oftentimes, and I was saying this in the beginning of the residency, and even in this space of Cal Arts, like that oftentimes we're being guided to how we think and not how we feel. And I believe that it's the balance between the two, between the heart and the mind, is where, really important work can be made and shared. And so that is, the environments that I create where one can experience work, is where those two aim to have some balance.
So when you think about that balance between thinking and feeling, is there one that you approach first over the other? Is there one that the artist has more responsibility over the other? Should they feel first and then that will make them think, or should they think first and that'll make them feel?
I believe it's the heart. I think that's the core.
So does the heart think, or does the heart feel? Or
the heart feels. Yeah, the heart feels. And, that's the connection that connects all of our energy bodies, like through the heart. And that's the way that I believe that we can heal, is through love. Love doesn't think. The heart feels, So if we're meant to heal through love, it has to be through the heart.
We can control our hearts. Do you know that?
Tell me about it.
Through breath.
Tell me about it.
And slowing it down. When divers go deep into water, they can hold their breaths for a very long time. But the only way that they're able to do that and to achieve that is to slow down the rate of their heart. That takes some serious thinking.
It takes the balance between the two.
Yes. We're just going to go deep here. We're going to go scientific, but also just thinking about that in that way. Then how can art also do that? to slow that person down, to slow that person's heart down so that they can feel?
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah, I feel then it's creating spaces for people to be able to engage with the work where they can slow down. I feel like Monument Eternal was a really good example of that. The exhibition that was honoring Alice Coltrane, Swami Nitarya Sangeetananda recently at the Hammer Museum. Did you see it?
Mm-mm.
So it was a space. It was kind of like a sanctuary, like immediately when you walked in, your heart rate slowed down, and there were 19 artists, I believe. I was one of them that was in it. And what I created was this space where people could sit and be with this 2-channel installation, and the sound. So like the environment was created for people to be with the work slower, or in their own timing.
What other techniques could an artist use to slow things down?
They can put down their phone. Getting outdoors, I feel like being in nature and learning from nature, there's so much wisdom, that I feel like we forget, being engaged in technology all the time, or just being on, or having screens in front of us. Like I feel like getting outside of walls, that will help people to slow down, help people to connect with who they really are.
Have you ever resisted resolving in your work clarity and preferred instead to leave intimacy or a representation, or just leaving something just more open-ended so that there isn't any finality to it?
It's all open-ended. I don't think there's any resolve, honestly. I mean, there's an end point, like I can say, okay, this is complete, I'm moving on from that. Or, this was a particular moment in my life experience where I needed to process this. But I feel like all of it is open-ended. There's no, like, that's, I feel, a Western concept for something to be complete. We're in cycles all the time, like we're in a cycle of life. Depending on your belief system, we're in a cycle of incarnation. So there is no completion.
When you have discussions with artists, and you've mentioned the Western kind of gaze and point of view several times, how emphatic or how transparent are you about that in your conversation? Is that something that you ground in the conversation with someone, or do you just give your perspective, but without having to necessarily say that what you're doing is trying to counter that Western narrative?
You mean in the art?
In the art, or even in your critiques as a faculty member right now, as you're doing your crits and walking around from, exhibition to exhibition to presentation to presentation.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty honest about it.
Yeah.
Even in my presentation, where I shared some of my work in the beginning of, yesterday. It feels like it was a whole week.
That's what happens when you come to residency.
But I shared kind of, even just because I used to teach at Cal Arts, and just was sharing how, where I was at that particular time and where I am now.
Yeah.
And what I believe now. And so I do feel like I'm honest about.
Is that imbuing upon someone your philosophy? Is it okay to do that as an artist? Because it seems that the pendulum has been swinging so many ways, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, of course it is, because I feel like I preface it with this is what I believe, not necessarily that you have to believe what I believe.
Right.
Or, there are many ways of making art. There are many art worlds, so I think that it's, my belief system isn't the only, belief system, so I think that like it's like the way that I teach is like we come with our own experience, our own bias, like everybody, right? Everybody that is, anything that comes out of their mouth is coming from a biased place. It's all subjective. So, I think I try to share that, or I do share that. And also, I feel like it's important to be aware of, like where one is historically in a contemporary art context. So I share that as well.
What does it mean to you to be unapologetically creative, especially in this kind of very politically charged time?
What's coming to me is having conviction, being honest, being collaborative, working in collectivity, and is being in service to your community, because it's a really, really, really difficult time right now.
If you could speak to your younger self, finding your voice in either collage or video, what would you say to that younger self?
I would tell younger Suné that there will be a time where there will be no censors, no boundaries on what you share. You will be completely free in your expression, that you are supported, that the president is going to give you some funds. No, I'm kidding. And that it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay.
How do you hope audiences carry forward the tension, openness, or persistent proximity of your work long after they see it?
I believe it's an invitation. The work is an invitation to understand something differently, an invitation to have a conversation perhaps about what they experience in the work. It's an invitation to maybe speak to somebody differently than they may have spoken to them, or to honor someone that maybe they haven't honored. It depends, on what that work is.
Sure.
But I feel like there's lots of invitations that are shared in the work of how one can move forward in their own life.
As we wrap up, Suné reminds us that art isn't about resolution. It's about invitation. An invitation to slow down and to reconnect with ourselves, with each other, and the world around us. And maybe, most importantly, an invitation to carry something forward, whether it's a conversation, a shift in perspective, or a different way of showing up. Thanks for listening to Unapologetically Creative. Be sure to follow the show and stay tuned for more insightful conversations in the episodes ahead. To learn more about the Vermont College of Fine Arts, visit vcfa.edu.